he points to this man's greatest need. What is this man's greatest need? Verse 23, and Jesus said to him, if you can. What does Christ do? He picks up on the doubt in the man's statement. Have compassion on us. Help us. But before he says that, if you can do anything, Jesus picks up on that. If you can. And then he says, all things are possible for one who believes. We need to be very careful about what we hear in that statement. Make sure we hear it right. All things are possible for one who believes. That's something our generation likes to hear, isn't it? That's sort of theology, but a twisting of that theology, a misunderstanding of that theology is used by our culture all the time. There's nothing off limits for you so long as you can believe it to be true. You know, Jiminy Cricket theology. If you wish upon a star, you can jump like Mike. That's back in my day, okay? I want to be like Mike. I could want to be like Mike all I wanted. I could not dunk a basketball except with a chair, okay, a trampoline. But that's how our generation thinks. Anything you want to be, anything you want to do, if you just believe it hard enough. Is that what Jesus is saying? If you can. Man, where's your belief? Don't you know anything's possible if you just believe it? Is that what he's saying? Not at all. I want you to note that the object for this man's faith has already been established. When he says, verse 22, but if, you want to circle this word, you can do anything. If you can do anything. And that thought carries over to his next statements. Will you have compassion on us? Jesus. Will you help us? Jesus. See, the man's faith, get this, is not in faith. The man's faith is in Jesus. Can Jesus help my son? Will Jesus have compassion on us? Will Jesus help us? This is not faith in faith. This is not wishing on a star. This is not faith in self. This is faith in Christ that's at issue. Which means that the limits for the man's faith are identified by its object. What limits are there when it comes to what this man is justified to believe? What does he have the right to believe? What does he have the right to believe in? The limits for his faith are defined by the object of his faith, Jesus. Which means the only limits are these, two. What is Jesus able to do? What is Jesus willing to do? What is Jesus able to do? What is Jesus willing to do? The man actually addresses that, doesn't he? He addresses the ability of Jesus when he says, if you can. He addresses the willingness of Jesus when he says, will you have compassion on us? Will you help us? Jesus, are you willing to help us? Jesus, are you able to help us? What does Jesus do? He picks up on the ability question, doesn't he? Am I able? If you can, so that when he says, don't you know that anything is possible for the one who believes, what he's talking about is this: there's nothing impossible with God. Don't you know who you've approached? Don't you know who you're seeking? Don't you know who you're asking this question to? If you can, don't you know who I am? There's nothing impossible for God. That's what the statement means.